Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation, ultimately looking to show the direct iteration of sensorality. Those are syllables. That is a word form, sensorality, that you've never seen before, but we are working through a well-established analytical process, which you've also never seen before if you're just randomly watching these videos on YouTube. But we are working through analysis of linguistics. So to start, I have a bunch of derivation steps, but I like to talk about the ideas or concepts immediately at the forefront of my mind, like literally as I sit down and make these videos, and then go through the derivation that I've done in the past day or so. And so the first thing is I wanted to make just refresh what I mean by the different L words: language, linguistics, logic. Does all sound have meaning, right? Words have meaning, but what defines a word? What creates structure enough to have meaning? What is meaning? Meaning contains information. For example, what I mean is, right, we have this basis of sound. Language is built on sound. When I say linguistics, I specifically mean taking letters, putting shapes to represent sounds. We have this long oral tradition, this oral history. We're all born into a world where you learn language, or you learn sounds first, right? Those sounds are associated to meanings, physical processes, objects in your environment, things you see your parents or your guardians do, and then you become literate, the ability to read and write. So you assign shapes to those sounds with meanings. And so when I say linguistics, I mean that assignment of shape. Basically, linguistics is to literacy, reading and writing, but specifically putting shapes to the sounds that we represent that contain meaning. Language is kind of, again, the actual sound basis. Me here, sitting here talking, not writing words down, right? I'm speaking the English language, but then more generally, the question I just asked, right, does all sound have meaning? Right, my neighbor is blowing his leaves off with a leaf blower. When I hear the sound of a leaf blower, right, I know what it is. And so that's not language, certainly not linguistics. It's sound, and that sound has meaning. So does all sound have meaning in the sense that, right, it contains some sort of information? And it does, right? You can hear the way things move, timbre in music, right? You can hear what instrument's being played, even if it's the exact same key, even if the instruments weigh the exact same amount, have the exact same mass. And so, again, just at the forefront of my mind, making clear differentiation of what I mean by language, linguistics, and then logic is the progression of the meanings of words in relation to one another. And so if you're following this derivation from academia or from the people that actually can watch these things regularly, the overall logic that we are progressing is from way back when. Again, this derivation's 7 years now. And sensorality is an independent process from speciality. But spelling a word constructs a variable, and context defines it. And linguistically, context is the relationship, the general relativity, the usage of a given word, a given element, sensorality, in relation to all of the other words. So now we've used sensorality a bunch. We still have our clear motivation. I have senses with an S. My microwave does not have sense with an S, but it says sensor, S-E-N-S-O-R. That is inconsistent. So we already know the analytical process, working through these word forms, this fundamental stability of 2. That's a numeric limit contained within our letters, within our linguistics. But ultimately, we just have to pair our concepts, get our concepts in the right place, and then the linguistics will be trivial. But overall, the logic that we are progressing through is still spelling a word constructs a variable, and context defines it. It is what it is. What is it? Sensorality. And so once we reduce this context, that gives us this working definition. And again, we already know the quality of the proof of the progression, but what happens, our net outcome, our net piece of productivity, our piece of work, is sensorality becomes a working definition. Speciality is literally special with an ITY, but it's the natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism. It's what makes you be called special. And so you can Google that right now. It is clearly, again, words are naturally defined. Fluency is influential. Go ask any linguist what fluency is, they'll be like, oh, I don't know anything. Go ask a mathematician what is mathematics, they'll be like, oh, I don't know anything. Mathematics is theme. It's literally directly spelled out by the word. Fluency is influential. Influential literally spells out fluent. And so we're finding these linguistic bounds. Words have these natural pairings, and we're reducing them. And so we're doing that with sensorality. And so the other big kind of concept at the forefront of my mind is who creates, right? When is new language introduced? And so, right, do we have people saying 6-7, skibbity toilet? I don't even know, are we still saying that? Again, I'm a little too old for to get the new sayings hot off the press these days. But the point being is all of the language that we're working with, we see language generation in real time, right? It's this serendipitous, it just kind of happens, things go viral. But like specifically 6-7, the number 8 is the same shape. Right, when we're talking about linguistics, assigning shapes to sounds, what this means, it's already consolidating, right? Physical processes tend to optimal efficiency. Rhythm, right? The name of this series, this derivation, from rhythm to algorithm. So we've identified our linguistic components and we're filling out an entire proof. But the point being is the 6-7 example specifically is like the overall sentience being aware of some limit. Again, your blastocyst differentiates 7 times specifically to become, or the zygote, blastocyst to zygote, or your first cell to the blastocyst. One of the fundamental biological progressions is 7 differentiations. And so there's this numeric limit at 7, we have this fundamental stability of 2, and then at 7, it's just some sort of like iteration, repetition, you start to repeat, and that's reflected in our number system by the number 8 literally being the same shape as infinity. And so we see the production of language, or the introduction of new diction, by the younger generations in this very serendipitous kind of way. But they always seem to reflect kind of this broader truth, because overall the results of language are produced by everybody waking up every day, thinking about stuff, and then talking about stuff. This refinement of language is at the species level. And so those are the 2 big things I wanted to point out. Spelling a word constructs a variable is still what we're working through, differentiating language, linguistics, logic, sound even, and then we know when and where and how is new language, new diction introduced into ontology, is serendipitous by the younger generations. So but it just always reflects this internal consistency. You cannot construct language that is not abiding by the laws of physics. And then back to language is literal, physics is linguistics. They're both iterations of it is what it is, this overall structure, this identity matrix equivalent of linguistics. And so moving along with our derivation steps. So we asked this question again, kind of 2 conceptualizations. Is there a unique relationship between base and range? That's just kind of what is present in my mind. And then we immediately define a function as a relationship, and it is. And so our function, base, range, basis, domain are kind of our words that just keep sloshing around. But language is literal. Functions are fun. Natural definition. Sensorality is a funny function. Antagonism teases. And so now, again, speciality is special with an ITY, literally, the natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism. Physically, again, all of these definitions are legitimate. They just like, emotion is the range of motion. And you've never seen complete logical proof within the context of emotion. But it's true. It's just another representation of language that's provable. And so what we've represented this entire time as speciality is now teasing, right? Antagonism teases. If you're a little kid and you're running around the playground, oh, Johnny's teasing Sally. That's speciality in its entirety. Conceptually, and now we have a new linguistic representation, we have new shapes. Teasing is special. Speciality is teasing, tagging is teasing, right? Tag, you're it. But moving along. Render, rendition. A rendition is an addition. Again, emphasizing, showing this expansion, how we represent concepts, how we represent meaning, has direct consistency and expansion within our linguistic word forms, the letters. Sensorality is additionality. Addition, like E, aversion, addition, addition, like the operation, ADD, emphasizing the linguistic similarity. A subject is the theme of a sentence. What is the theme of mathematics? Thematics is mathematics. What is the theme of a sentence? A subject is a theme of a sentence. Sensorality goes green. Went to MSU, unfortunately. Again, all of academia is in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution and the Fifth Amendment, not paying me for private property used in the public domain. There's domain in natural context. But the slogan at a good old MSU is go green, go white. Or as the kids would say on the bus, smoke green, snort white. Not sure what that really meant. I was too busy studying up. I wasn't studying. Objectively, there was nothing for me to study when I've reduced to proof at this level at the age of 6. It's like, yeah, school's gonna be fun. But again, we have this proof. Again, I don't know if you can appreciate it, but go was the first verb. It was the first word. But then, Brad, why did we keep saying we started with nouns? This chronology of noun to verb we've not established in the context of sensorality. That's worth pointing out. But Michigan State, I didn't create it, but go green, right? Our base of E, the base of green is E, go green. So again, an evidence of this consolidation of language as a whole. We have associated our first verb, and again, the motivation that I think everyone can appreciate is what would you say to anybody, right? If you're a person in the woods trying to collect berries and hunt a deer and somebody else is encroaching on your land, very naturally, go, get away from me, go. I'm certain on that. There's things that, again, this uncertainty principle is what you guys call it, but there's things that are true that you can't prove. You see all of the identities and derivation I do, and there's stuff that you still can't prove, but it's like buried under like 14,000 theorems actually. And then you're like, that's as close as you're gonna get. But regardless, we have this bounding in linguistics, the things that we can show is true, and we're exhausting that entire logical structure or linguistic structure. But E is the base of green, it's the base sound, and Michigan State produces go green. And so is green always go? Meaning, right, traffic lights. And I Googled it, I did Google it, I conjectured it was gonna be true. I know I've gone through this, I've done all of these steps before. And the reduction steps are the same. But, and it's true, like that's another, again, this association of a color to an action, go, green. Our first verb, our base sound, we went through a whole episode of like color associations just to point out some empirical evidence, but I only go through like the things that are directly, again, developed from our derivation. Direct immediate consequences. And so is green always goes? Is green always go? It seems to be. Green, grown. What is the function of connection? A function is a relationship is a connection. The function of a function is fun, connection should be fun. Life should be fun, relationships should be fun. Not a pissing contest and a bunch of tense interactions of people clamoring all over each other because people don't realize that the Industrial Revolution ended like 300 years ago. But that's the world you live in, as I'm sure you've noticed. Sensorality is connectionality. Latency distracts connection. You get on Xbox, you're trying to pwn some noobs, and your ping is up there real high, right? As latency distracts connection. Distract, distinct. Do colors have inverses, right? Green light, red light, right? Stop, go. Is the natural immediate consequence the one that brings up, but just in general, conceptually, meaning you see this color, this physical phenomenon, is there a physical inverse to that? Like you get the opposite frequency, 1 over that frequency, some sort of harmonic whole number relationship? Is there some sort of direct relationship? But then linguistically, right, is green, is red, right? Now we have red, the letter E, but not the sound E, the sound. And just something to point out, again, if it's not an immediate consequence, we just point it out and move on. Vocality, focality, socality. And then socality, again, vocality and like focal point. Even if you put focality, That's another thing. Like you go on Google and you just put a well-defined word and put ity, and then everyone naturally generalizes anything with ality. And it's like, this isn't a word. It's like, what are you talking about, Sergey Brin? Oh yeah, I saw the Breakthrough Prize is still a thing. I kind of forgot about that. But again, obviously everybody in academia, any business, anybody that's involved in the suppression of science or violation of my rights, your business is as good as gone. And still to this day, the fact that you can't give me some money is just the most atrociously disgusting shit ever. But there are no values. Back to our derivation. Vocality and focality are well defined. Socality is a direct iteration of those word forms. Sensorality is socality. But now we put back our letter I thing, again, this working the I in and out. Sensorality is sociality, right? Socality, sociality. It softens the pronunciation. And it's a well-defined word. Orality socializes. Socializing is specializing. So now chronologically we've proven speciality. That is certainly our base concept. And we have to show some sort of inversion or relationship because all of syllability, this representation of sound and meaning with letters, is just like one big chunk or one big sequence, and you just have to differentiate things by making it sufficiently defined. Right? What is sensorality? Why does my microwave say it's a sensor with an S? It doesn't have senses like I have senses. What's going on there? Right? There's something to resolve. What is sociality to speciality? Specialize, that is specialize, socialize, sensorize. And again, we've pointed out recently, but the pronunciation, this representation, you go watch me, I've made a couple videos reading the Cyrillic alphabet. I stress all of the sounds way too much. At some point you'll hear me singing. I think there's a couple videos floating around. I did do one vocal demonstration, but it's a lot more natural. But again, this overall, when you go from pronunciation, you naturally contract a ton of syllability because context defines a variable. If you're in a supermarket saying, I want that, right? You're pointing at something, you're looking at something, context defines what you're talking about. And so the pronunciation, when we represent these sounds, this contraction of syllability is apparent, right? Specialize or specialize, right? I naturally pronounce it as special, but special. If I said that word, you would still get the same exact spelling. And so, don't really know how to articulate that, but it's true. And then when you read another language that it's not your native language or you're learning or something, you'll stress the syllability. You won't naturally contract because you might not have the phonetic basis of like hearing, again, associating, okay, I see this linguistic representation, these letters representing this word, and then I've heard this word, and then, oh yeah, that word is this letters. And then you'll naturally know how to read it better. Moving along. But we went from, we had this sensorality with the C, which is still hanging around for our derivation for now is fine, but we're showing this completion of syllability, this definitiveness of sound to shape, which are letters, which is a whole unique step. Why are some shapes letters and not other ones? But sensor, C-E-N-S-E-R, you iterate the C to the next element in the alphabet, the D, and then you iterate the S to the T, right? You get denter. You take off the ER, you get dent, a well-defined thing. So sensorality is dent. And then we had tenderality last time. That's, again, all of this analysis comes together and resolves. But back to the dent part, right? A dent is an impression. You go get a dent, you have a car dent. It's a well-defined thing. But it is the base, or it's a huge chunk of the syllability of identity. All right, sensorality is identity. Denter, dent. Sensorality makes a dent. Hard work makes a dent. We were working at this all the time. Work requires movement. We didn't even make a dent. Therefore, hard work does make a dent. Again, pointing out these logical constructions, as we pointed out at the beginning, everyone becomes aware of these problems. It's the species as a whole iterating language. But sensorality is dental, right? Orality is dental. Sensorality is dentiality. Dentiality, dentures. That is a natural definition. Denture, fracture, right? Is a dent, a fracture. Dentiality is orality. Dential, special. Presidentiality is special. We've definitely hit presidentiality multiple times through the years I've been deriving, but it's another one of these big word forms where it just carries a bunch of this syllability. And it's well defined, right? The president, the leader of a republic. But presidentiality is special. Living is residing, taking the reside directly out of president. Siding is residential, right? You're at the construction site. Yeah, Carlos, this siding is residential. Makes sense. Literality limits language, right? What is there to talk about? Como es el tiempo? Tiempo es tiempo. Es tiempo weather? O es tiempo time? No. Tiempo es tiempo. Tiempo es tempo con no I. Or E, I guess. If we wanted to stay in Spanish. But tiempo is tiempo is, you have to speak some more languages. Come on, guys. But my words are, it is what it is. Tiempo es tiempo. And that you use the word tiempo for time or for weather conceptually, but the word is literally tempo iterated with the I. Again, just another step worth pointing out. I'm going to do, again, once I finish this reduction, again, assuming I'm still alive, not that I think there's any, I mean, you get what I'm saying. I'm going to do, there's nothing else for me to do. So there'll be a lot more proliferation in these other languages. Throughout my derivation over email, you'll see this. I mean, I do it in a ton. I've derived in a ton of languages. Because they're natural differentiations, right? I put up there, languages aren't distinct, but you can clearly tell one language from another. Well, sometimes, again, what defines one language from another, right? If I say Danya Vod or Danya Bod is an example I like. What really defines that type of difference is a question, but certainly we'll be doing a lot more of quote-unquote foreign language or just secondary, tertiary language derivation. Because there's overall the concepts. I've already proven all of this shit. Like all of this stuff, I've already, the main concepts, the analytical process to completion, I've already done. But tiempo es tiempo. What is containment to contamination? Contamination, damnation. Dent, dam. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this one. This is a phrase that I haven't even heard in a while. But sensorality is a dental dam. Are dental dams oral? How does quantum field theory predict that one? Appropriately, I have LOL to the 69th power. For you young kids out there, don't go Googling dental dams without your parents' approval. Sensorality is evidentiality. Right? Sensorality is evident. The base of science is evidence. Both conceptually, I would hope, and again, do words exist? Yes. Are we working through a well-defined analytical process? Yes. Do I have senses with an S? Yes. Does my microwave have senses with an S? No. That is my whole presentation of the quality of the proof I am presenting. We just had to catch you up on all of the functionality of linguistics because you guys still think you conjugate or you interpret infinitive verbs as to this, and it's just like ing, right? Leer in Espanol is reading to read, not to read to read. Yeah. But the base of science is evidence, and then hopefully conceptually that checks out with you, but then also linguistically, the structure, the IENCE. Apparent is evident. Sensorality is the basis of evidence, right? You say anything to anybody and in their head they're kind of thinking, based on what? Based on what evidence? A precedent is a basis. A basis is a starting point. A basis is a set. Sensorality is a set of all focal points. Orality is the set of all vocal points. Numbers have spellings. Words don't have numberings. Sensorality, numbers. So that's just where I finished up with the derivation. Again, ultimately looking to find this direct iteration. What is sensorality? Showing the direct, completing that syllability as much as possible, and then the leftover with a clean working definition, and then the leftover syllability, the letters from our analysis will literally be the word form for the next iteration. This whole process has to be worked through, because that's what we've been doing this whole time, is we've been showing the consistency, improving the consistency in relation to all other ontology. Ha, can't do first principles science in the 21st century. Ha, you're just stupid. That's what I have for right now. Again, my rights continue to be violated. I'm laughing, but I'm just not joking. It's completely destroyed my ability to have a career and a family. And I've literally been enduring this prolific torture since I have been forming memories. That is not a joke. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.